Hello there. I know I've never really made a video like this before because I think sometimes being vulnerable about things in your life can be a little scary. And I'm not normally someone that will, I don't want to say doesn't trust easily, but I just don't let people in that much this easily. But this last month has been kind of insane for particularly for my wife Kim. And I don't know. I just wanted to be able to tell people what was going on, and it was one of those things where, like, anytime someone would ask, it's just like I want to tell you what's going on in my life, but it, it just seems like trying to explain it all would be very stressful. So I figured this might be the easiest way to do it. So this video is not going to be edited. I'm just going to be probably reading a lot of stuff, but yeah. So going into watching this video and understanding, know that Kim has or had, I don't exactly know what the terminology would be now, but a condition known as endometriosis, which is something that a lot of ladies unfortunately deal with and will cause them to have a lot of pain during their cycle. She first had a surgery a few years ago to clean that out, but eventually the pain came back. And then a couple years ago, I think about 2.5 years ago now, she had a hysterectomy. And then back in September, like a week after we moved into our new place here, the pain came back again. And so our journey starts with that surgical date to remove her ovaries. And the other very key important thing is that Kim is allergic to corn. It's basically found everywhere, from fillers in tablets, vitamins, medicine, to even the interior of to-go cups if you're going to get like a coffee or something like that. So it is one of the most commonly used fillers in about everything, even the process that iodizes salt. So even table salt she can't have. What that ends up doing is it causes her throat to feel very tight, where she has very difficult time breathing. And this is where our journey begins back on Black Friday, November 26th. So this is her surgery. The surgery itself kind of went seemingly fine. Like there wasn't like they nicked something or did anything like that. Like they were successfully able to remove the ovaries and clean up any existing endometriosis that they found. But it just seemed like everything else was very like rushed and not very well prepared for. So a couple of days before, Kim spent what seemed like maybe 2 hours on the phone with someone from the hospital going over her medical histories, her corn allergy, what to expect when we got there, things that she wanted them to know about, all this kind of stuff. And yeah, so from the moment we got to the front desk, actually, the surgery, and to this moment the surgery was over, the staff seemed just kind of unprepared and in a bit of a rush. It's Black Friday. Makes sense, but it's not okay. At times they did seem like they maybe listened here and there, but at times they seemed to gloss over some of the most basic details about Kim. They even ordered a pregnancy test for her, which I understand that that's probably standard operating procedure for a woman of childbearing years. But she had a hysterectomy. She's not pregnant. That's not how that works anymore. And it's just one of those things where like the removal of her ovaries is kind of like the last nail in the coffin for her to ever be able to have any biological children of her own. So it's an emotional time. It's a very heavy thing. Let's see, where was I? Yeah, really, all this does is it tells me that the nurse that ordered that really wasn't paying attention. What was the point of having that phone call beforehand? Also, there was only like 6 total surgeries, at least in this ward, like for the day, and Kim was the very last one. But like I said before, the surgery itself went well. It actually finished ahead of schedule, but the recovery room was really weird. Once they told me that I could go see her, I went in and I saw that she was the last one there. She was the only one there, and she was still like obviously very groggy, and she tends to take longer than most to come out of that anesthesia. So she's, her eyes are closed. She would sometimes open her eyes and just be like, "Oh, I need I'm in a lot of pain." So they would give her some pain medicine. But I would say after maybe a half an hour, they had already unhooked her IV, and actually had a wheelchair just beyond the curtain waiting for her. And I know that there's like a balancing act between getting ready to leave the hospital and like switching from IV pain medicines to, medicines that you would take orally. But this was really fast. And it wasn't until I explained to the nurse that Kim tends to take a little bit longer to get over or come out of this anesthesia effect that that they let her be, which they did end up doing. And I think it was like an hour and a half or so, excuse me, an hour and a half or so later that she was able to kind of come out of it. But it's just, all of this was really weird because, again, Kim had explained this on the phone to the person that she had talked to maybe a day or two ago. All that to say, it was a stressful day to begin with, and just factually speaking, it was made worse by the hospital being unprepared. So the next day, November 27th, Kim began to feel like her throat was very tight. She was struggling to breathe. We usually would refer to this like, oh, did you get corned? Because that's how that allergy affects her. Not much else to say about this day, really. We figured that there was a good chance that there could be some contamination because corn is just, it really is in almost everything. And it is honestly better to just assume that it's in everything until you prove otherwise. Over the next few days, we definitely had difficulty getting the correct hormone replacement for her because after a woman doesn't have her ovaries, she's no longer able to produce estrogen. So they actually go into menopause. And the side effects and testimonies of the patch that they had prescribed was, we'll just say, concerning. I know it's always a balancing act when you read side effects of things and testimonies of things, but you have to navigate that in what's best for you. So we ended up going with the non-generic version of a patch that we did because of so much better results that were reported by the women that had gone on the patch after a surgery like this. And of course, my insurance doesn't cover that, so what can you do? Then Tuesday, November 30th, Kim was supposed to have started her hormone replacement the day after surgery, but now we're about 4 days past, so she started dealing with hot flashes and all that kind of stuff, and it was a lot. I believe that was the day she started the patch. But then Thursday, December 2nd, Kim had to remove the patch because her breathing had begun to get like consistently bad at this point. Like, she's got her inhaler, she's got like 17,000 different natural things that she does to try and reduce inflammation and try and get this easy to ease the effect. But it was getting consistently bad at this point. We didn't know what could have triggered this. I mean, the best explanation was the patch, since that was like the new element. But we eventually got her on a replacement pill, but had to be a half dose because the regular dose, after like an hour, her palms were like pooling sweat. She was dizzy. She was nauseous. Honestly, like, I don't understand how like women have the wherewithal to go through this change, much less my wife, who had this thrust upon her because her body was just betraying her, and then have to deal with all of this. Like, it kind of boggles my mind. And then to have to go through that on top of recovering from a major surgery, it's an abdominal thing, which that's like the most difficult thing to go through when it comes to recovery, because it just affects everything. But again, the emotional thing of having your ovaries removed and all that stuff, it's just all compounding, and it's just a very difficult time. Over the next few days, it was actually somewhat simpler. Not easy, but simpler. She was starting to get physically stronger at this point. She wasn't quite needing some of the extra attention that she was needing before. And actually, I believe we were able to have our Sunday night game on whatever day that was, maybe the 5th, I think it was. So things looked like, all right, maybe we're kind of coming out of this. But then Tuesday, December 7th, her breathing really started to get worse. We actually headed into the ER, but on the way there, things kind of improved. And like I said before, she had taken all of the different things that she has at her disposal to try and calm it. And when we got to the hospital, there was like a little walking path around it. So since things were kind of improving, rather than going in the ER and dealing with all of that, we took a walk, and the colder air actually helped her breathe a little better. So she decided she didn't want to go in. The next day, though, Wednesday, the 8th of December, we did go to the ER because nothing seemed to control the issue. She describes it like feeling like you're breathing through a small straw. I kind of picture like I used to work in a restaurant, so like the straws stirs that you might get in a beverage like that. That's kind of the way I always imagine that, which just sounds awful. If you have asthma, you probably understand better than I do. But we were both happy to see that once she got there, she had the little sensor that goes on your finger that did say she was at least getting the oxygen that she needed, but her throat felt so tight, we don't understand what's going on at this point. They gave her a steroid, waited for about an hour or two, and then they sent her home. Things had calmed down a bit for her there. But the thing with doctors, particularly ER doctors, is that once they can't explain what's happening to you, it kind of just feels like they begin to look at you as the problem. This is where you start hearing things like, well, anxiety can make this worse, or, you are medically cleared to leave. And I get it. Like, I do. Like, an ER doctor, their job is to just be like, I'm going to patch you up. You will survive. Go follow up with your primary care. But sometimes it's just this like sharp transition. And when you're in the middle of what feels like a crisis, like if you can't breathe, it's just like, well, I know you're having trouble breathing and like your throat feels really tight, but like your anxiety is the thing. It's like, well, yeah, would you feel if it felt like you were being choked? Sound like that would be anxious? The answer is yes. There could just be this very sharp transition that almost, I don't know if the goal is to make you feel guilty, but it's almost like they're saying like this is in your head, or like you're choosing this, and once you stop choosing this, it'll be fine, which is just, it's just wrong. Like, and it's just wrong. I'm not going to say anything else about that. That's just wrong. The next couple days after that, excuse me. The next couple days after that were not like ER bad, but they still just were very much not good at all. Kim had an appointment with a nurse practitioner in her primary care's doctor office because that was the first thing we could get. But this nurse practitioner actually really made her feel listened to. She gave her a prescription for a steroid regimen that she could meet until she could meet with her primary doctor, which was scheduled for Monday, the 13th of December. And we were also in the back of our mind wondered if she might have had some COVID thing going on, and she had a COVID test, which came back negative. I also was exhibiting no symptoms, but that's not necessarily a guarantee because COVID is weird. Just be safe, everyone. I know it's weird, and boosters and vaccinations and stuff. Just know wearing a mask is never a bad thing. At worst, it's mildly uncomfortable. Anyways, Saturday, December 11th. Another trip to the ER. But we did go to a different one this time. We have two that are more or less about the same distance from our house. And so we figured why not see if the other hospital might have some insight on this. Again, good news. Kim's oxygenation was at a level that she was getting what she needed. And, we still didn't understand why this kept happening because we had tried a different milk, but there was nothing that led us to believe that there was anything other than just organic whole milk in there. Even vitamin D, they add that. So that's another thing. The coating of the carton of a milk carton, it's mind-boggling. It's like it has to be in glass or plastic. Like, it's crazy. Where was I? But yeah, we couldn't figure out how this was happening. The doctor here that she saw, oddly named James Fallon, so we kept calling him just to ourselves, Dr. Jimmy Fallon, spelt differently. But it made us laugh, which was at least kind of nice to have in the middle of all this. But he was one of the first people that we encountered that seemed to kind of come up with some kind of a theory. He said it might have been like an adult version of croup, which he said a lot of parents will bring their children in with having difficulty breathing, and then when they get there, it's like they seem fine, which a lot of times happens with what's going on with Kim, which can be very frustrating when you try to tell the doctor, like, listen, my throat is tight. I know that you see that I have this going on where I have the oxygenation level seems fine, but it feels like I'm breathing through a straw. Um, but he also told us that actually very cold air in the middle of one of these events can actually be helpful. So if you remember earlier when I said the walk around the hospital helped her, this actually was one of the most useful practical tips we got. And I don't know if it's just like a cold thing, like ice will reduce swelling. Maybe there's like something going on down there. This actually was very helpful. He also gave her a prescription for an EpiPen, which we never had. But he also gave us a referral to see an ENT or ear, nose, and throat doctor, which would make a lot of sense. It's a throat issue. Then Sunday, December 12th, we went to the ER again, but we didn't go in. We went back to the first hospital because of the walking path there. And again, the cold air, along with everything else, believe me, that she takes between the inhaler, all the stuff, things calm down. She would describe this like a threshold where she's like, this could she would kind of say like, this goes either way here. Like if it doesn't calm down and maybe takes that one step to worse, I'm going in. If not, I think we can go home. We also actually bought one of those sensors that goes on her finger so that she could at least see if she is getting the oxygenation, kind of help reduce the anxiety, help us kind of find some kind of peace in understanding how we should handle this situation. But even though it was mostly fine, she did definitely have times where her levels actually dipped to the low 90s, even 90 itself once or twice, if I'm not mistaken. But they did seem to typically bounce back to above 95 every time, which I believe 96 and higher is like the target. I'm not an expert on that. But she did sometimes get some tingles in her face. That's something that I've heard her say in the past. And so low oxygenation levels can produce that. So even if it's not dangerously low, that is the thing. So either way, we decided to go home on Sunday. Then Monday, we actually had her appointment with her primary care doctor. And Kim felt like he listened to her too, which is not normally something she says about almost any doctor. But today was different. I think a lot of times doctors, this is just my theory here, a lot of times I think doctors, they're so used to just thinking like logically and problem solving. It's just like, if this, then that. If this, then that. If not this, not that. Like, it's a very... it's like logic proofs. Like I remember growing up, doing those things with like modus tollens and all those kind of rules where you try and figure stuff out. And I think it's very easy to forget that there is a person who is scared that has come to you trying to help find what's going on so that they can breathe again. Like, so I would imagine some doctors have to be trained to hear through emotional speak. But either way, I wasn't in this one, in this appointment. I had just driven her there. And either way, Kim felt listened to by him. And that's not something that's common. But he gave her a prescription for what would basically be like a regular allergy medicine, which we think was kind of comparable to like Allegra. But Kim can't use just about anything that you might find at, say, something like a CVS. So we had to call it into a compound pharmacy to have it built corn-free for her, which is basically what we have to do. And when it comes to corn, it really is a guilty until proven innocent kind of thing. So obviously, when it comes between the choice between like Kim's health or like my health, in this case, obviously Kim, and like spending money, I choose her health every single time. But it seems like compound pharmacies, at least down here, the ones we've researched, they don't take insurance. So at this point, just on medication alone, we probably spent like $1,000 or more on that. Again, the choice is super easy. And Kim's parents actually, every time there's something going on, they really are a tremendous blessing. Like they call up and they always will say like, what are we doing? We're retired. What are we going to spend the money on? So they help. And it's nice to know that, that you have backup. But when you start to feel this pressure, this kind of pressure on top of all the other stuff you're dealing with, there just gets to be this like weight that's just on everything, every day, every decision. It's just kind of all encompassing. But the good news is that this corn-free Allegra, I think it's called fexofenadine, seems to be the most effective thing at controlling this. And it was really nice to know that there was some backup there. So that was Monday the 13th. Then on Wednesday, the 15th of December, Kim has her appointment with the ENT doctor. And I'm not going to go into a ton of details here, but this was the worst doctor experience that either one of us had ever witnessed, been a part of, or seen. Right away, Kim had a gut feeling moving into the office itself that it was just not a great place to go. But at this point, remember, this is December 15th. She had her surgery back on November 26th. We are 2 to 3 weeks into having all of these breathing things just steamrolling ahead, and she was just desperate for answers. And so she continued. I was so thankful that I went into that doctor's office, because right from the moment he walked in the room, it was very clear that this guy was bad news. He was gruff, blunt. He interrupted Kim constantly. It just seemed very obvious he was trying to establish that he was the smartest person in the room. And like I said, I don't want to like rehash what happened, but I physically almost attacked this man because he just was not listening to either one of us when all we did was ask him to explain what he was going to do before he would do it. Kim and I have this like look, because a lot of times when I'm in that situation, I'm trying to like figure out like, okay, I'm her husband. Every like male instinct I have is to protect and provide for the people that I love, and she's my wife. So I did speak directly to him and told him like, you will thoroughly explain this if you want to put your hands on my wife ever again. Again, I don't want to rehash this because it actually is. Either way, I'm trying to balance. This is Kim's health. This is her body. This is her wishes. And she has this look that she wanted to continue with this. Because I even asked her, I was like, do you want someone in the middle of the room? Like, I'm like aggressively talking to him. Like, do you want someone else to do this? Like, it was. She didn't. She was desperate for answers because she was having trouble breathing. I understand that. Very aggravating, though. Very, very aggravating situation. So he actually ended up prescribing like an antacid, because sometimes that, if there's like a bad thing going on here, which steroids, which he's now actually been on a couple now at this point, can produce a lot of acid, which can cause the throat to close up. He also mentioned like a combo of a liquid Benadryl and Mylanta to coat the throat to try and get like an antihistamine directly on the inside, like directly at the point, which I thought, yeah, that makes sense. Kim explained that corn is almost certainly in both of those items, though, and he kind of just like shook her off as if she didn't know what she was talking about, which, of course, you know, the thing that she's been dealing with for like 10 years, you know, what would she know over someone who has just for the first time heard about a corn allergy? I seriously want to punch that guy in the face, like really hard. I don't remember the exact timeline. I'm going to move on for the next few days, but these happened. I don't remember. I might not get this in the right order, but I picked up the compound antacid that she had and the 2 liquids, and I was assured by the compound pharmacy that all of it was corn-free. And just because it's one of those things, I happened to look at the label for both the, like, it was generic, but it was Mylanta and the liquid Benadryl, both of them. And on both of them, I saw like 5 things that I know she can't have. So I went back to the counter and I'm like, are you sure this is corn-free? Because there's almost no chance that it isn't. And it's because it's not just like, oh, we put corn in here. Like, it's things derived from corn. If an ingredient ever says flavor, citric acid, like there's just so many things, like some kind of alcohol, it's almost always corn. And so these things were all over these products, and the pharmacist that researched it wasn't there, but the other pharmacist assured me that she did the research and that it was fine. I did not think it was possible that they were correct. I brought them home. I talked to Kim on the way home. It's also like a 40-minute drive because, of course, it's a compound pharmacy that's not near us. Anyways, on the way home, I called Kim, let her know what was going on. I think I took pictures of the stuff and sent it to her. She called the pharmacy, and the pharmacist guy there, again, another person I'd like to punch square in the face, told her to Google it. Her pharmacist said, you can just Google it and see. Whatever. Suffice it to say, we were both angry. Kim called the number on the bottom. It's like questions, ask, call this number. So she called that, and the company that makes both of them could not confirm they were corn-free. Oh, number one, F you, doctor, who said that there's no corn in that. Pharmacist, like the pharmacy, it's literally your job to not mess this up. Suffice it to say, Kim really she kind of let the pharmacy have it. I was very proud of that. At this point, we're both feeling at least the antacid though is corn free, and that seemed as strong a theory as any. So it's an antacid. What could go wrong, right? I think the thing is called famotidine. Famotidine? I don't know. It's like in Pepsid or any of that Zantac, any of the antacid stuff. It's the most basic thing. Well, Kim took it, and that night she felt like she was losing her mind. She had vicious nightmares that night. And then we read that there are testimonies that there are definitely people that have this reaction to that medicine. I'm sure it's a minority of what's going on. I'm sure it's a minority of people. But of course, in the middle of dealing with recovering from removal of her ovaries, dealing with the emotions of knowing that she, even though we talked about if we wanted to have children, we both are extremely comfortable with adoption. Like, I'm getting to an age now where I'm kind of thinking like, I don't know if I want to have kids, but if that is something we decided to pursue, we are so both fine with adoption. Like, there's so many kids out there that need a good home. They need love. And we would love to do that if that's the case. So on top of the surgery recovery, on top of dealing with those emotions, because even if that's not a desire of your heart, like, that's an emotional moment. And that's just heavy. Feeling like you can't breathe. Dealing with doctor after doctor that basically starts talking to you as if you're the problem. It's just anxiety. It's just anxiety. This is yeah, sure, it's just anxiety. You know what you're gonna be dealing with? Just my fist in your nose. So you're dealing with that, and then you take an antacid, and she has a night like that. It's just like, I really, at this point, like, I can't really even describe what we're feeling. Like, she was so desperate for answers and any kind of help, because you're starting to deal with extended amounts of time where, like, there's just this weight of wondering when your next breath is going to come. And I'm like trying to work. I think at this point is when I just started using my sick time because I need to take care of my wife. But to feel that constantly beat up and constantly ineffective, I don't even know how to describe it. That's just where it's at. And then, okay, so that was in the aftermath of Wednesday the 15th. And then, I think it was either the 17th, which was a Thursday, or a Friday, it was the 18th. Kim noticed that the gums around her wisdom teeth looked infected. So, yay! After all of those things I just mentioned, now her wisdom teeth need to come out of her head, because why not add another thing? on to what she's dealing with. Fortunately, she was able to see the dentist and got her on an antibiotic. Had her surgery set for Tuesday, the 21st. I was actually in that meeting with the dentist too. And he was very attentive, very much listened. This odd concept of didn't interrupt her when she was talking. It was this wonderful thing where he actually could learn what was going on with her. And he took her corn allergy seriously. And Kim walked away from that feeling very good. At least as good as you can about someone who's going to rip teeth out of your head. Then on Tuesday, the 21st, today, right now, actually, that I'm recording this, it's 1:41 in the afternoon on the 23rd of December, and it's Thursday, right? Yeah, so it's Thursday. So Tuesday, a couple days ago, her surgery was set for about 10 a.m. or so, and we learned, I didn't know this at the time because she just went in. She learned that because of how much corn is used in virtually everything, the dentist had to not use 3 of the 5 components that he normally has, like in the anesthesia for this. So he used more than he was supposed to for certain things to try and counter. I don't know all the details of what he was using or not. But to make that part, to already make this long story a little shorter, Kim woke up during the procedure. Yep. So I've had a tooth pulled before. I was awake for that because it was just one. It's right here on the side. Actually, you can see right here. Not wisdom teeth. It's nice. It's funny that I don't have a tooth there, but at least from a cosmetic standpoint, you can't tell. And I was awake for that. I remember being like, ugh, that. Okay, I don't like dentists to begin with. It's not comfortable. It's not fun. But the words Kim used to describe what she went through was aggressive and violent, and I understood exactly what she was talking about. My situation was a little different. I wasn't infected as much. I mean, it ended up becoming infected, but the tooth had cracked and splintered, and it was weird. I think they had to break that up before they pulled stuff out. This was years ago. This was probably, I don't know, 2013, 2014, something like that. But after hearing what she had talked about and then talking to the doctor later on that afternoon, from what I understand, it sounds like she was in and out of consciousness during things, because she was assured she would be sedated. So I think, if I understand correctly, and of course I wasn't in the room, I could be wrong, I suspect that they gave her medicine, she fell asleep, they began to do the procedure, and then while that was happening, she started to, her body fought through it and woke up. So I don't believe she was in significant physical pain, but I remember feeling what this this tooth being pulled felt like to me, and I can still picture the room. I can still picture the dentist. Little bit of a smug look as to why would you ask to be put asleep to have a tooth removed, kind of make me feel like I'm less of a man or something like that, just for wanting that. So I know how much that has stayed with me since then. So I can only imagine what she's thinking, feeling, and how that's going to be, how much more, she had to get all 4 out, all 4 of them. And they're way in the back. So anyways, I did not expect this video to be this long because since Tuesday, things have been, she's recovering from things, but it doesn't feel like we're on the front lines in a war being crushed and beat up. So I didn't expect this video to go this long. We're at 34 minutes, geez. But I guess it actually does make sense with everything that we've been going through this last month or so. And I know that there are plenty of people out there that have had it worse. I don't think it's right to compare pain or stress, because until you actually are that person, you still will never fully know what someone's going through. But I really have never seen a string of events quite like this in such a short amount of time to one person before ever in my life. Like, that's just crazy. And even the days like when maybe we didn't have a doctor's appointment or something else scheduled, like I said earlier, like there's just this like looming feeling and weight that just like hangs over everything. Like, when is her breathing going to act up again? Are we ever going to figure this out? Will it pass? Why is this happening? And why is it all happening at once? Like, is one thing kind of making the next thing happen? You know, maybe it was like an infection with her wisdom teeth, and now her throat is just going to be a little calmer. You know, she's not someone that tends to take a lot of medicine in general, much less because of her corn allergy. So, like, is all this stuff just kind of like exacerbating things? Like, I don't know. Right now, like we feel tired. We feel very tired at the moment. Like I said before, it does feel like things are starting to settle down. So I just want my wife to have some peace in her mind and in her body. And I want to sleep. That would be nice. So all that to say, really, there's not much else I could say about that except for thank you for listening. And I hope you have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and a peaceful and happy holiday season, whatever it is that you celebrate. And know that I love you. All right. Take care.